Hello, this is Gene Eisenmann with your HydroWave tip of the day. Today I'm going to talk with you about swimming a Zoom Ultravibe Speed Worm. One of my favorite things to do, one of my favorite techniques from when the water gets to 55 degrees and up. I use it to catch fish and also use it as a search tool in trying to find bass as I go along. This approach is based on a real aggressive fish pattern. So my HydroWave, I'm going to turn on the most aggressive pattern, the shad frenzy. I'm going to crank it up, I'm going to burn some bank and get a lot of things going. But it's real key that your HydroWave's on the most aggressive pattern. When you go to swim an Ultravibe Speed Worm, I use two different techniques. My first technique's a upper water column technique, and it's based on several things, but most important your equipment and how you retrieve that bait. But I'm going to talk with you real quick about the equipment that I use, because I feel like it's the most critical part of doing this thing right, and it's taken me a long time to develop what I use. But the first technique I use is basically swimming it in the upper water column. And when I do this, I use the lightest weight I've got, that 1/16 ounce bullet weight. I Texas rig it, and I use a owner Z-neck hook. That Z-neck hook is critical because that Z-neck hook is real light wire, and it's real light hook. And when you're swimming a speed worm, it's almost like fishing a swim bait. You got to let them eat it. You can't jerk on it, you know, do the old proverbial bill dance jerk. You got to really let them eat it, really wind it slow and let that rod load up. The tip of that rod's got to load up, and then you use a sweeping motion to set the hook. You're not going to jerk on it, like I was saying. But this owner Z-neck hook is the best hook out there for this. It's real light wire, and it's going to get the job done. Like I say, I Texas rig it. Over the last few years, I've been trying to find the perfect rod for this technique. That's the most important thing, I think, when you're swimming it slow, just above the surface. You need that special rod, because it's going to need to load up very softly. So what I use is the Falcon Cara. It's a medium heavy finesse jig rod. The way it loads up on the tip is so important to me. I can sit there and just keep winding. As soon as I get a bite, that tip will just load up really strong, and it's got the backbone to just sweep instead of really jerking a hook. I always use 15-pound test line. I feel like this presentation, the line visibility is pretty much not essential, or they're not going to see it. So I swim it. I never worry about getting my worm perfect on the hook. I skin hook it, but I don't want it perfect. The way this speed worm swims across the 1 foot of the water column, maybe 2 foot of the water column, I just do a nice easy retrieve. Nothing fast. Sometimes I'll burn it. You know, burning it may be the deal in mid-June when they're feeding in the morning real shallow. But I'll typically swim it slow, but I want it to hunt. And the bait will hunt if you don't rig it perfectly. A lot of people want that worm perfectly straight, which is true when you're regularly fishing a worm. But I want this thing to hunt. It'll zigzag as I'm bringing it back and make all kinds of crazy movement and trigger that strike. But like I said, that HydroWave needs to be on, you know, shad frenzy, and it needs to be loud. You know, if it's slick calm outside and the sun's down, you're really not going to, or the sun's up high, you're really not going to use this technique. So it really needs to be on high. The second technique I use for swimming a speed worm is I'll use a 5/16 ounce weight, and instead of swimming it on that upper surface, you know, I'm gonna let it sink to the bottom, and then I'm going to crank it a few times. You know, it's got the heavier weight, it's going to sink faster. I use the same rigging technique, the exact same hook, because the same bite's going to occur. It's going to, you know, load up on you, and you need a sweeping hook set. I use a different rod setup. I still use 15-pound test line because a lot of times it's a reaction strike as this thing pops off the bottom. But I use the Falcon Cara Mike McClellan jig rod. It's the best rod I've found for this. You can make long casts and still load it up. It's got so much backbone, but it also has a somewhat softer tip that lets the rod really load. But I love using this when the sun does get up and you're in grass or something like that, and that swimming on the top of the surface thing dies down. They're still wanting to eat that speed worm, but they've gone deeper. So, so I'll back off in 5 to 10, sometimes 15 foot deep, let that sucker settle on the bottom, and then lift my rod tip, swim it up, and throw that slack in. But it's my most effective way to catch it, using these two techniques. I love to do it. I love to search for bass, and practice with this. And once I find them, I may slow down with a Senko or something. But no doubt, my most favorite way to fish. Now, when you're using a 5/16 ounce weight and using this technique and letting it go slower, it's usually midday and sometimes the winds died down and it's gotten subtle. I'll cock down the volume on my HydroWave to maybe 50%, 60% in that range. So it's midday, things aren't as aggressive, but during the summertime I'll have it going, I'll have it kicking. But that's the swimming a speed worm technique. I use multiple colors of the Zoom Ultravibe Speed Worm. I've got right here the June Bug Red. I love that color when the water's a little more dingy, but I'll sometimes go to a Green Pumpkin or a Watermelon Red down at Sam Rayburn. They love that Watermelon Red, and I'll have it on every time. A lot of times, when they're biting really good and you need that big bite, I'll pull out the old Magnum Ultravibe Speed Worm. It's got a much bigger profile, a much more heavy vibration to it, and you're going to catch bigger fish on this thing all the time. I'll swim it or let it sink and treat it like a swim bait. I'll do both techniques, but it's a real effective way to catch them. It's my tip of the day. Make sure to log on to HydroWave.com and get you a HydroWave. They're so effective. I can't even explain the difference it makes in the bite, especially when the fish are aggressive. This is Gene Eisenmann. Have a good day. Good fishing.